Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bite Size Cinema. I'm your host RJ McCready, and for this episode I'm going to be taking you guys back to the year in 1973 to look at the iconic Bruce Lee movie Enter the Dragon. And joining me for the show, he's coming back for another bite. In fact, it's double the bite this time. It is Dan Bone from the podcast on Haunted Hill. Dan Bone, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back. How are you?
It's good to have you here back on the show here, Dan. Like I said on Masters of the Universe, I mentioned Enter the Dragon and it was like, yep, I'll come back for you on that one.
My eyes lit up when you mentioned it.
Yeah. How you doing anyway, mate? What you been up to? Anything? You been watching anything? Anything obscure?
You know me, I love my shark exploitation movies, so I've been checking out some terrible movies with bad CGI sharks. Raiders of the Lost Shark, Shark Planet, Ice Sharks, Beach Sharks, Lava Sharks, you name it, I'm all over it.
Every time I look on the Facebook page, mate, I'm always thinking, when I fire up Facebook, I'll see what Dan Bone's watching today. Some obscure shark movie. They've made a whole ton of those, haven't they?
There are so many of them that they've now got their own genre, shark exploitation, which I love. I absolutely love.
I think I've even got to the point now, I don't even know where they could go with that, because I think they covered every avenue, haven't they? Shark Exorcist.
I think Sharks in Space is probably the only one they haven't done yet.
Yeah, that's right. I think everything ends up in space somehow, doesn't it? So
it does. Jason, the Leprechaun, whoever it is.
Did the Leprechauns... Did he go to space in the end? Or
he did indeed, yeah. Just before he went to the Hood,
right?
I believe it was Leprechaun 4 in space, I think. So yeah, even he ended up in space at one point.
Right, okay. So with these franchises, you end up in space along the way. And just going back to that shark, the shark movies, it always makes me laugh when someone posts on Facebook, oh, when are we going to get a Jaws remake, or should we remake one? I was thinking, well, have you seen all the shark movies that have been made out there? It's pretty much been done.
Yeah, it's been done in every which way. Every which way possible.
And I did notice, mate, that you watched Sinbad and The Golden Voyage of Sinbad the other day. Was it on there? I
did, yeah, man. I've set we got the horror channel here in the UK, so I always set up anything that I fancy watching at a later date, and I always find those movies are great on a Sunday morning when Alice is still in bed and I come downstairs with a coffee, just like when I was a kid, you know, without the coffee obviously when I was a kid. So yeah, I watched The Golden Voyage. That's a great movie, isn't it? That bloody creature that the son of the god, I can't remember his name now, but
I can't remember his name. I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, he kind of should have his own movie, really, shouldn't he? Do you know what I mean?
I remember I still felt the sort of terror as I did as a kid, because when you first see him, he's stop motion, but then when they cut to the actual actor wearing all the makeup and he's chatting away, you're like, wow, that is terrifying, actually.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually one of my favourite Sinbad movies. I love it. I
remember you saying.
I like the guy who plays Sinbad in that. I think he's pretty cool. Obviously it's got Tom Baker in it. He's great as the bad guy. I love his little sidekick dude, Ahmed. Oh yes, master. Oh yes, master.
I think my favourite out of that bunch of movies, like the Sinbad movies anyway, is probably Eye of the Tiger. Yeah. I just love that one. That's such a great one.
That is everybody's favourite, that one. And I've said this before, I think we're due another Sinbad movie. I'm surprised no one's taken that on, really.
I know. People like Jason Momoa doing like the Conan movie, you know. We could do it. We just need someone who's not too muscly and can do a bit of comedy and a bit charming. A bit like Wesley from The Princess Bride, somebody like that. Who would be awesome. If they could find an actor that's like Carrie Yules, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I had a discussion with, I think it might have been Danny Bennett from the Howling Powwow. He was talking about doing a Kroll remake.
Oh, and right,
we're kind of going on to a tangent here, but he was talking about Michael Rooker playing the Torquil character.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Pretty good. Yeah, so... but yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of on the fence sometimes whether people could remake these films or not. I don't know. Either go good or bad, or I don't know. Maybe maybe like a sort of grindhouse version of Sinbad to kind of give it a bit of a different spin. You know, maybe Robert Rodriguez does Sinbad or something.
Oh wow, imagine that. That would not be suitable for children.
It wouldn't be suitable, but I think if you're going to remake it, you probably want to bring a different sort of spin to how Harryhausen did it or something like that. So
that would be cool.
But there you go. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Sinbad. We're not here to talk about Sharknado or shark movies or anything like that. We're here to talk about martial arts. We talk about Bruce Lee. So what we're going to do, guys, we're going to take you back to Hans Island. We're going to get the ship ready in Hong Kong. We're going to go over to that island. We're going to play you a trailer, and we'll see you guys soon.
Roper, Williams, and Lee, the Deadly Three, penetrate the secret chambers of an evil island empire.
What do you know about Han? He lives like a king on that island, totally self-sufficient.
A fortress without walls, protected by an invincible army that needs no ordinary weapons. This is Enter the Dragon, the first martial arts film produced by a major Hollywood studio. John Saxon is Roper. He was in it for the money. U.S. karate champion Jim Kelly as Williams. He was there because he had no choice. Black Belt Hall of Fame undisputed martial arts champion and international film star Bruce Lee. His job was to get them out alive.
I'm hoping you'll join us, represent us in the United States. You want me to join this?
Roper, Williams, and Lee. Just when they think they've broken the secret of the island, they find there is no escape from the inscrutable Han. Warner Brothers presents Enter the Dragon, where the world's greatest martial arts athletes meet the ultimate challenge with the most ancient and deadly of weapons, the human body. Enter the Dragon from Warner Brothers.
And welcome back, guys. So the synopsis for this film is Lee, a martial artist, helps the British intelligence in an undercover mission to nab Han, who is involved in drug trafficking and the sex trade. It's an action crime drama. It's got a 102-minute runtime and it's got 7.7 on IMDb. So Dan, when did you first see this great movie, mate? What's your first?
Well, one of my earliest memories of sort of bonding sort of movies that were like really highly rated, and he was always a massive Bruce Lee fan. He had lots of inside kung fu magazines and stuff. So, you know, I think a lot of blokes, especially in the 70s, probably were. So I remember he let me watch a couple of the very early Bruce Lee movies, which, you know, although they've got violence and boobs in them, they're not too bad, really. It's all quite tame. But I remember one day he said, there's a movie on the TV that I've recorded. You might want to watch it with me. It's got that Bruce Lee guy in it. So we sat down and watched it. So I was probably about 10. 11 maybe, and I just was blown away by this, what was almost like a James Bond, but with martial arts and islands and ninjas and snakes and absolutely really amazing storyline, you know, just so good, so good. And that was it. I was hooked. Bruce Lee was, until I got into Jackie Chan a couple of years later, Bruce Lee was just, and he still is, you know, an icon, a legend. I wanted to know everything about him. I wanted to be him, you know. He's badass, absolute badass.
Yeah, exactly that, Dan. Exactly what you're saying there. You know, I can hear it in your voice how much of an effect that had on you. I was about 10 years old when I watched this, and I saw it at Christmas. You know, when you get the TV guide and you can see, that's what you used to do back in those times, didn't you? And I saw a picture for Enter the Dragon, and I thought, wow, that looks amazing. And I was talking to my parents, and they said, yeah, you need to watch this film, even though it is, you know, it's an 18, we'll let you watch it. But at no point did it had a massive effect on me. I thought, I've never seen anything like this before. You know, I was into, obviously, you know, I was into Indiana Jones and Star Wars, and it was all fantasy. But I think the difference here with this is Bruce Lee was an actual, what he was doing was for real, do you know what I mean? All these techniques and stuff, and it was amazing. And even my parents back then said, you know, we went to the cinema to go and see this back in the day, and we'd never seen anything like this back in 1973. It was like groundbreaking, do you know what I mean? And
absolutely. And with his charisma and on-screen presence as well, because there's only a handful of actors really. And Bruce Lee wasn't really an actor, you know, he was a martial artist first, but when you put someone like him on screen, and I can only really compare him to people like maybe Arnie, and people who've got this presence when they're on screen. Bruce Lee's got a look in his eye. He doesn't need to say anything. You know, he will take down these 50 blokes. You know, he's something about the way he moves like a cat, and the way he delivers his lines, especially in Enter the Dragon. It's just so. Oh, the guy's. Oh.
It's godlike, isn't it? Really.
It is. Yeah.
And it's funny because when I was doing the notes to this, I never really thought about this before. I was going through all the characters, and I actually thought, oh, what is Bruce Lee's name in this film? Because I never really, do you know what I mean? Because even when I watched it as a kid, I just thought he's Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
It's not like, do you know what I mean? It's like you say, well, you just said, it's not like he's an actor, and that's not taking anything away from him. He doesn't really need to do that, does he? He just needs to do his stuff. And I just thought, hey, in the actual fact, his name is actual Lee in the film, so I only found that out the other day. Yeah, do you know what I mean? We'll call you Lee. Okay, thanks. But yeah, it is amazing. It's just, I would say I've never seen anything like it before, and yeah, that's where I'm left at. Really, it's just an amazing. It's an amazing movie as well, like you say.
We'd seen a lot of the cheaper, low-budget martial arts movies from Hong Kong, and this had that Hollywood money behind it, which you'll probably go into in a minute. And that was the other thing; it had that polished Hollywood lens, and it just was shot so well. And you know, it was just the sets were magical. Really, it was almost like a fantasy land. This Hans Island is like a fantasy island that you'd go to, isn't it? Really, it's awesome. Like if you were a kid, you'd want to go to this island and look at these ninjas and these people practicing martial arts and stuff like that. And it just looked incredible, really.
Well, you said it just there. It's got everything that you want as a 10-year-old, don't you? Really? Do you know what I mean? It's got an island. It's got a bad guy. It's got the heroes going there and all that sort of stuff. So it is just all you've got the full package with this movie as well, haven't you? And I was going to mention this, I'm sort of jumping ahead here, but I will mention it now. The music by Lalo Schifrin, that incredible song right at the beginning, isn't it? It's just
as soon as that kicks in, you know, no matter how old you are, still now, when I was rewatching it for this recording of this, I just was hyped up, man. As soon as you get that dun dun dun,
yeah.
Wow! And you hear Bruce Lee go mixed in with it. You're like, this is it. We're in now. We're locked in.
You know what, Dan? I need to wake up in the morning to that. If I'm getting up early at 4:15, that needs to be my alarm clock. Do you know what I mean? Because I'll be straight out of bed for that.
Brilliant. I can imagine. That's so brilliant.
But while we're talking about Lalo Schifrin, so he did the music to Mission Impossible, and he did the Dirty Harry soundtrack as well.
Yeah, he's great. Musician. I think he did Bullet as well with Steve McQueen.
He did Bullet as well. He kind of had that sort of wow, 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 wow.
Well, he would later go on to almost recreate the Enter the Dragon soundtrack for Rush Hour with Jackie Chan.
Right.
A lot of the soundtrack there sounds a lot like some of the songs in this.
Yep. And, you know, as I said before, I think music is such an important part to the movie. It really just... I've said this before in the show. I said it's another character for me. It's the character that you don't see, which is like picking up all the actors and taking them through the movie, if that makes sense. It's so vital.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the director. So you got director Robert Clouse. It's a
soundtrack that sits proudly in my collection as well.
Oh, yeah. So Robert Clouse, he directed The Rats from 1982, or The Deadly Eyes as it's called, James Herbert's The Rats movie. Did you know that, Dan?
Yeah, he's a strange director, isn't he, Robert Clouse? He's kind of done very different things.
And he also did Jim Carter as well from 1985, the sort of... I don't know if to call it like a
almost
sort
parkour style.
Yeah, I think I've heard Ricky Morgan mention that on the Short Bus Cinema. I think it's iconic, but it's a pretty bad movie, if that makes sense. Almost like a sort of rip-off.
Yeah, he did
arts
quite a few
movie.
martial art movies. One that I'm a big fan of, China O'Brien, and China O'Brien 2 he did as well with Timothy
that's
Rothrock.
right. Yeah, that sort of jogged my memory. I haven't heard that for a while. It's one of those films I saw on the shelves in the VHS store back in the day. And I never knew this, Dan. The writer for this is Michael Allin, and he actually adapted the Flash Gordon screenplay from 1980.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
No, when I was reading through it, I just thought, oh, okay. So it's one of those things I've dug out on this show. And it was a joint American-Hong Kong production. So you had Hollywood and Hong Kong, a joint forces. I think it was the Golden Harvest Enterprise, which you're probably familiar with here, Dan, with all your sort of Way of the Dragon movies and that before this.
Yeah.
So they come together, and so, like as you said earlier, mate, this is the first Hollywood production, but it didn't have as big a budget as I thought. It was $850,000, which is quite low, even in '73, because Planet of the Apes, just to give you an idea, was made in '67, and that had $5 million. So it's not as big a budget as you think, but boy, did this blow the box office. $90 million, mate, at the box office.
What?
Whoa, boom, it went straight through, man.
Wow.
Because apparently they spent a lot of money on advertising for this as well. But yeah, it went through the roof, and quite rightly so. So in today's inflation, that'd be about $500 million. So it'd probably be like a Marvel movie or something like that coming out now, I guess. So.
Well, they certainly made their money back, didn't they?
Yeah, big time. But unfortunately, as we know, Bruce Lee, he didn't go to the premiere, did he? He died 2 weeks before this film premiered, unfortunately.
Which adds to the sort of legend of this film, almost, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, it does. It's like he's left a legacy, isn't he? You know, in this movie with everything. So
there's a lot of mystery and myths around the making of this film, but also around Bruce Lee, and those two things tie together when you mention that fact that he died a couple of weeks before the premiere of the movie, because there's just answers we'll never get, which we don't want, really. We like that mystery with Bruce Lee.
Love a little mystery, man. Did you have the same thing at school about Bruce Lee? He used to come up in conversation. Everybody used to think he was still alive, especially after watching
Oh, yeah.
this. You know, it's like...
Yeah, he's working down the local chip shop. Elvis is working in the kebab house. You know, the usual things.
Yeah, that's right. Apparently there was some bet on down the betting shop that Bruce Lee and Elvis would turn up on a stagecoach coming through town together or something like that. So, some crazy ideas. Will we ever know? I guess one day we'll find out when we see a stagecoach coming down with these guys on board. So we'll find out. I don't know. Maybe that happens. Yeah. So, but let's talk about who else is in this film. Who else is supporting? It's got a really good supporting cast in here. As obviously we've spoken about Bruce Lee and all his greatness, and we will do again throughout the show, I'm sure. John Saxon's in this. He plays Roper. And again, Dan, I'm sure you're familiar with him as well for, I know you do your horror podcast. He's turned up in some really good horror movies, hasn't he? Some iconic ones. Yeah,
he's been in a few giallo movies, but he's also in at least one, if not a couple, of the Freddy movies, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, two of my favourite ones, actually. The Dream Warriors he came back for.
He fights a skeleton, I think, doesn't he? In a scrapyard.
Yes. And he's also... one of my favourite sci-fi movies, Battle Beyond the Stars. He plays the bad guy, Sador.
Yeah, of course he's in that. Yeah, he's very charming, smooth, almost like the James Bond character in this. Really,
he is very much a James Bond type of guy. And Dan, I never knew he was in Argento's. I can never pronounce it. Tenebra.
The Giallo. Oh yeah, he was in Tenebra. Yeah, he was in a few Giallo movies, I think. He's got the look, and he's very smooth and fitted nicely into that universe.
Mate, I always have trouble trying to pronounce those names. So, if I was on Bullseye back in the 80s, and old Jim Bowen said, "Can you for £10 spell Tenebra?" Oh dear, I'm terrible. Jim Kelly, Dan. Plays Williams, karate champion. He's a cool dude, isn't he, man?
Very cool. He is definitely another icon in this. he's got his big afro, and this launched his career, didn't it? This movie, he went on to star in Black Samurai, Black Belt Jones, which I think was directed by Klaus as well. But became a bit of a blaxploitation martial arts hero throughout the 70s.
He did, yeah, that's right. He did. He came back for that. And you got right, here we go. It's another one. Bear with me on this. Kian Shia, who plays Han.
Yes.
As an actor, I think he's done about 200 films, but his voice was dubbed throughout this, so that's not actually his voice. And do you remember when I was telling you, I think I private messaged you about Gremlins, the little Gremlins segue into this movie or trivia?
Yeah, go on then.
Right, so you might already know this, mate, but his voice was actually dubbed by Kai Luke, and he's the Chinese guy from Gremlins at the beginning.
The one who owns the shop?
Yeah.
Ah, there we go.
So there you go, mate. So he is... he's the guy who does the voiceover for Han. So there you go. It's a little bit of a Gremlins tie over there from 1984.
Amazing.
And he also did the voice to Zoltan as well in Battle of the Planets. That sort of TV show in the 70s. So yeah, there you go. And Scooby-Doo, he did some of the bad guys in Scooby-Doo. So there you go.
Wow.
Robert Wall, who plays O'Hara. I think he's another sort of martial artist.
He's turned up in a few 70s, probably even 80s martial arts movies. He plays O'Hara in this, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a bit of a badass, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He gets all those
Got a big
plates of
scar.
wood, doesn't he? Yeah, he's a proper bad guy, isn't he? I wouldn't just say 70s bad guys, the 70s, 80s. When you see a bad guy, you see someone like O'Hara in the movie, don't you? Do you know what I mean? Like the sort of henchman. And I think that's very weird, as you mentioned earlier, mate. It's a bit like James Bond, isn't it? Where you get that sort of... He is Han's sort of right-hand man. He's actually, again, another little bit of trivia, Dan. Freddie Prinze Jr.'s godfather. There you go.
Wow. I would never have thought there was a connection to Buffy the Vampire Slayer all the way through from Enter the Dragon. That's insane.
Honestly, Dan, that's bite size for you, mate. Do you know what I mean? I'm going through this. I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. How am I dragging that up? But I'm also going to shout out Kate Pollock as well, because I know she listens to the show, and I think she's a Freddie Prinze Jr. fan. I think she likes Buffy, so I thought I'll shout her out.
She does.
So let's all shout out there to you, Kate. Thanks. I know she listens to the show, so she's very busy on Facebook posting great stuff on there, which always makes me laugh. So, and Bolo Yang, who actually plays Bolo. God, he's a badass, isn't he? Man.
He is huge. His real name is Yang Zi, but because his character is so infamous in this movie, he changed his stage name to Bolo, or Bolo Young. So became Bolo, the Beast from the East.
Yeah. And of course, we also got Jackie Chan, who plays a thug or something like that in this as an extra. So, and obviously he'd go on to have a great
he gets
career.
Broken by. Bruce Lee broke his neck in a cave. That's a shame.
That's right. Yeah, so I didn't realise that until I watched it the other day. But he has that iconic scene, doesn't he? Where he's got that face and he like that, and he sort of breaks his face up. So there you go. There's the cast. So have you got any trivia you want to sort of tell us about on this film, Dan? Is there anything sort of stand out?
I mean, there were quite a lot of urban legends from the set, because there were so many extras who were constantly apparently challenging Bruce Lee, because he was already becoming a bit of a legend. So things like he would put $100 down and say, whoever can catch my fist gets the $100, but no one did, apparently. There was also the incident with Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan at the bowling alley. Do you know about that?
No, I don't know about that. What's that one?
So Jackie Chan was obviously trying. He's very career driven, and at the time was just a stuntman and wanted to be Bruce Lee. Wanted to be, is recognised as him, and chatted to him a little bit on set.
Yeah.
Got hit in the head with him by a stick by Bruce Lee, who apologised immediately. And then later on that day, Jackie Chan decided to go bowling with some of his friends from the stunt crew. And Bruce Lee kind of followed them to the bowling alley. And Jackie Chan said Bruce Lee just got a beer, sat at the bar, and just stared at Jackie Chan for the entire time he was bowling, and thought, what's he doing? He was really nervous. And the next day, he just came up to him and on set and said, I've been watching you, and I think you're going to do really well in your career.
Really?
And that was all he said. Yeah, he saw something in Jackie Chan, and Jackie Chan said that was one of his most favourite things that's happened to him in his career.
That's weird, isn't it? Because, you know, he did go on and have an amazing career, isn't it? It's almost like what you said earlier. Bruce Lee is just that mysterious character, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? There's something about him. Because one of his other arts was obviously philosophy, wasn't he? Quite a deep character, wasn't he?
He was indeed, and he put a lot of that into this film because he actually wrote elements of this script and screenplay as well, and that's why there's so many philosophical elements in it. He was a hippie at heart as well, you know, and even the fact that the three main characters, one's white, one's Chinese, and one's black, you know, that's quite progressive for 1973. And Bruce Lee really wanted to put that philosophy across. You know, he was really into just bringing everybody together and peace. And like I say, he was a hippie.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I think I remember you saying that as well. It's like, again, the film is like a sort of, well, it is a sort of blaxploitation movie, isn't it? There's a lot of influences on other directors with this film. I would probably say Quentin Tarantino as well, wasn't it? With like Kill Bill.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a sort of Bruce Lee influence there with that. So, yeah, no, it's amazing. But I was going to say with Bruce Lee, obviously there was this whole thing about, you know, going back to him dying, and I remember watching I think it was the Dragon movie about his life, and they mentioned in that he was having nightmares about a dream demon, wasn't he, that was like trying to kill him. And it's just, I always found it weird how in the film, I don't know how accurate this is that he was trying to protect his son Brandon from this demon, and it's just weird how, you know, Bruce Lee dies and then his son dies around about. So it's just very sort of, I find it incredibly spooky in some ways. It's strange how that.
Yeah, and that's part of the legacy, isn't it? There's the Lee family curse. You know, is it the triads trying to kill them? Is it a curse? Is it just coincidence? It is an interesting, very intriguing story, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, okay then, mate. Well, let's talk about this great movie then. So, let's do a bite-sized review of Enter the Dragon. And Dan, because I know you love this movie so much, mate, I'm going to let you take the helm again, mate, because I like your storytelling. So take us away, man. Enter the Dragon, Dan. Let's do it, man.
Okay, man. Nice one. So we do get that amazing little bit of score, but that's just after we get our first taste of our character Lee, who is in a monastery. So he is a Shaolin monk, or was a Shaolin monk, and he is doing a display fight almost with Sammo Hung, who's also another very famous Hong Kong actor.
Yeah.
They're wearing these little sort of nappies, aren't they?
I thought that was funny when I watched this when I was 10 years old. two
this scene was actually directed by Bruce Lee. He wanted to direct this scene, so that's cool, and it's a cool little display of a short but sweet fight. We get a taste of how badass this character is. Some versions of the film are followed by a scene where a monk comes up to Bruce Lee and says, "You need to meet up with British intelligence," but some don't. Did you watch that version?
I've only ever seen the version which I'm sort of familiar with. I didn't realise there was two versions, because just after the fight, he gets introduced to, "Hello, Mr. Braithwaite," isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like...
He does, yeah, he does. So he meets Mr. Braithwaite, who is a very British gentleman having a cup of tea.
Yeah, he is old school 1970s British intelligence, and
I didn't realise the character that played him the guy that played him, Jeffrey Weeks, actually died a year later after making the movie. I was quite surprised about that.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. He says to him, we want to talk to you about a tournament of martial arts. It's Han's tournament. And it transpires that Han is an ex-Shaolin monk as well. So it's somebody that Bruce probably would have known. And they think that he is doing some very corrupt things on this island of his. So Bruce is not interested initially, is he? Not really that interested at it.
No, he comes out with a few other options, doesn't he? He almost makes a Dirty Harry reference here, doesn't he? He says, get a .45 gun or something like that and just shoot him. Or is that after the credits?
That's just after the credits. But
Oh,
no,
it
you're
is,
right. He
isn't it?
says,
So-
somebody
'cause
should just pull out a gun.
That's right, because where you get quite a good big introduction here, didn't you, before the music, don't you? So, no, he's not interested though, is he? But he's talking about some other options.
Yeah, and they say guns aren't allowed on the island because he's afraid of being assassinated, and also he had a nasty experience with a gun at one point, which I guess was his hand getting blown off by a gun.
Right, that's it.
Because when we meet up with the character so much later on, he does have a habit of changing his hand into different weapons.
And
which
again, that just makes it. All bad guys need missing limbs, don't they, or something like that, don't they? Which makes it great, doesn't
an
it?
eye patch.
Yeah, he's got to have an arm missing to be bad.
We get a little taster of the philosophy again, because in the middle of his first meeting with Braithwaite, a student comes along, and Bruce is like, "Oh, excuse me a moment, I've got to go and teach this guy how to do a kick." And he slaps him on the head a few times, and then I love the whole sort of, it's like a finger pointing towards the moon. Then he slaps him again and says, "Don't concentrate on the finger. We're going to miss all the heavenly glory."
Yeah, Dan, if I was ever to have a cameo in this film, I'll be that kid trying to kick. What are you famous for? Well,
slapped.
being slapped by Bruce Lee.
It's a good thing to be
Well,
famous for, I guess.
A lot of people would probably take that, wouldn't they, actually? Yeah, thinking about it. Dear.
Bruce does have this second meeting with Braithwaite, which you mentioned, which is where he then suggests, why don't we use guns? But guns aren't allowed on the island, as we've discussed. They show him lots of black and white footage of O'Hara, played by Bob Ball, who's a badass. He's getting bricks smashed up and wooden sticks smashed over his body. And he says, this guy lives like a king. It's a fortress island. He picked it up just after the war. He lives there. But we think it's a front for prostitutes and drugs. We found a dead prostitute in the sea who was last seen on one of his junks, and she OD'd on heroin. So Bruce decides to take the mission. Really?
Yeah, he does. He gets persuaded in the end, because I think as soon as he finds out about the prostitution ring and the sex, I think he's suddenly thinking, this has become like a rescue mission. So I think with his philosophy, he's thinking, yeah, I'm going to take this on, because I'm now going to not just kill this guy, I'm going to go and rescue these girls, because then it goes into the avenue of his sister being killed, doesn't it? Which...
That's right.
Yeah,
so he finds out there's a female operative on the island as well called Mei Ling, and his mission is basically to get to the island, make contact with this operative, and then radio in once it's confirmed that there's drugs and prostitutes, and then the British intelligence will come in. And he's like, so I love this line. So he's like, so if there's trouble, you'll make a phone call.
Yeah,
and the guys are like, yes, we will.
And this is 1973. We don't have cell phones back then, do you? So, yeah, some good.
I love this next bit where you get the backstory of the three main characters.
Oh yeah, I love this. Yeah.
It's done so well. So we find out about Bruce Lee, like you said. Tell us about his sister. What's going on there.
Well, yeah, that's it. And like you say, it's that backstory, and they're trying to persuade him to go to the island, but then that's how he is, isn't it? Because he sees O'Hara and he thinks that's the bloke that's killed my sister. So this has become a sort of like a revenge
so
mission,
O'Hara was in a gang of people that tried to rape his sister. I'm not sure what they were trying to do. They were bullying them and beating them up and mugging them. And then his dad cut O'Hara's face, which is why he's got the scar, and then his sister ended up committing harakiri rather than whatever they were going to do to her. So that's his backstory, revenge. And if Bruce Lee wants revenge, you better watch out. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, don't want him after, do you? Concentrate only on the finger. Okay.
Like I say, I love the way they do this bit of backstory for each of them, because they're all sat on individual boats heading towards the main boat, which is going to take them to the island. And we get a sense of who they are. Like you see, the next person we meet is Roper, who's got like a boat full of suitcases.
You know what, Dan? I'm glad you said that. I was just going to say that when I watched this, because I haven't seen this for a long time, actually, Enter the Dragon. I just thought, how many suitcases has he got? He's got like
He's a smooth dude. He is a smooth dude.
He's got 3 Chinese people carrying his suitcases in those trolleys or whatever.
It's ridiculous. His backstory is he is a successful businessman, but also he is a gambler. He's addicted to gambling, and he's got somebody like the mob or some loan sharks are after him because he's basically run out of money. So he's on the run, really. He's come to this tournament to try and win some money and get away from the mob and the mafia and the gambling, the loan sharks. And that's kind of Roper's story. He's just in it for the money, really, isn't he?
Yeah, because this is the other thing. When I watched this as a kid, I always thought that Roper was a special agent. I thought that he was actually a James Bond type character. There's just, it's funny when you watch these films when you're older, you just realise who these characters actually are. But yeah, I always thought he was an agent. But nope, he's a gambler with loads of suitcases.
And John Saxon actually thought for the first few days of shooting that he was the star. So when he was on set, he was walking around like he was a star. He didn't realise that actually he was second to Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
it took him a few days to adjust to that.
I read that. He thought he was a star. He's gone, hey, I've got a black belt in karate. I'm a cool character. I'm the star of the show. And then Bruce Lee probably turned up and went, what? Gunk. Okay, Bruce, I'll tell you what, I'll let you take over. That's fine. I'll be your wingman. Don't worry about that.
We also get to see his martial arts skills on the golf course when he beats up those mob guys, and he's pretty badass. He takes them all out in a few kicks, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, sort of almost does like a sort of dad dance, doesn't he, in the old karate world?
And he's a bit cocky. He delivers lots of cocky lines as well.
Yeah.
When he's fighting.
It works. He's really good as a character. I like John Saxon in this. He does it well. And then we've got the other character as well, is it Williams, is it?
Williams, yeah. Williams his backstory is he's on the run because basically he was harassed by some cops, some racist cops, and he ended up in self-defense kicking the absolute shit into these cops.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? God, he sorted them out, didn't he, proper? Yeah, and
Jesus Christ,
quite rightly deserved as well because they were proper bad, weren't they?
Yeah, they weren't very nice at all. So he beat them up. So he's on the run from, I guess he's on the run from the law, really. And that's his backstory.
Yeah, I've always, when I watched this recently, I always thought that if you didn't have Bruce Lee in this film, and don't take this wrong, Bruce Lee all day long, but this could actually be his story, couldn't it? You could actually have the story of Williams, couldn't you? Just, on the run from the cops, goes to an island tournament, and then, it could have gone down that avenue, couldn't it? All easy into all three of these characters' avenue, couldn't it?
They all have a really good character arc. Maybe Bruce Lee doesn't. Maybe Bruce Lee's character stays pretty steady. But Roper, I always think, is a bit like Han Solo because he starts off being in it for the money, but becomes the hero by the end of it, really, or one of the heroes by the end of it.
You know what? I guess now you say it, I suppose the Han's Island could become the Death Star, couldn't it?
And it's called Han's Island. So
Han's
Island,
Han
Solo.
Death Star. Suppose you could have one of those boats as the Millennium Falcon or something like that. Oh, hang on a second, Dan, we're just reciting Star Wars here.
We'll be talking about Sinbad again in a minute.
Dan, you could chuck Gwildor in this film, couldn't you, somewhere?
I can't be killed.
Oh, there's a room of mirrors in here. Oh, dear. So, anyway, massive segue there, people. There you go. So, back to Han's Island.
Yeah, so it turns out Roper and Williams actually know each other from Nam, which is the old 70s classic bit of storytelling, isn't it? Everybody knows everybody from Nam.
That's it. You don't know, you weren't there.
Sorry, carry on.
Oh, no, it's all right, mate.
You weren't there. You were going to say you weren't there, man.
You don't know you weren't there. It's just a bad joke on my part. There you go.
It's always what happens, though, isn't it? It's
Can't
true.
help but say that.
And they say things like, same old Williams, same old Williams, same old Roper, same old Roper.
Yeah, that's
they haven't really changed.
They are great.
We get to meet a few other characters on this boat. There's a bit of betting on the boat while they're taking the trip out to Han's Island on some praying mantises. So we see Roper doing a bit more betting. He loses $100 to Bruce Lee.
Yeah, that's
which is gutted. Yeah. And we get to meet a guy called Parsons, a Kiwi fighter, who Bruce Lee teaches a lesson to, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a proper knob, isn't he? Really, this guy. And
he is. Yeah, he's kicking some of the Chinese guys around who are like carrying crates and stuff around the boat. But what does Bruce Lee do to him?
The art of fighting without fighting. So that is pretty much my style of fighting.
My style of fighting is run away.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of how I am realistically. But yeah, he teaches him a proper lesson here, doesn't he? Bit of, I suppose everybody, if you watch this film for the first time, you probably think that Bruce Lee's going to get into the proper action here, aren't you, on a boat or something like that? But he does it another way, doesn't he, Dan? How does he do it?
He does it. He says to him, "All right, well, look, I'll tell you what. Me and you will go and fight on that beach over there. Let's take this boat." So Parsons says, "All right." So he gets on the boat, but Bruce Lee just lets the line out on the boat, so the boat's then out adrift, being dragged behind the junk, and then he just says to the kids, grab this and have fun because he's been picking on you. So they get to get this guy soaking wet. The boat's almost sinking a bit, and he's like, "I'll get you for this." He's shaking his fist, but Bruce Lee's like, "If you try and pull yourself up, we'll just let go of the line." And I guess that's how he arrives at Hans Island, being dragged behind the junk in a soaking wet clothes.
And quite rightly so, because he was a knob, wasn't he? But no, it's great scene. I like that scene. Every time it comes up,
I like that scene.
It's pretty cool. So, oh dear.
And they arrive at Hans Island, and this is where we get to see Bolo Young in his beautiful yellow knitwear.
I'll tell you what, Dan, that'd be a reception, wouldn't it? If you arrived on an island and you saw Bolo, you'd be thinking, bloody hell, what have I just turned up to?
That guy is huge, isn't he? He's such a beefy bloke.
And he just looks like he's going to sort of kill you or something like that, doesn't he, just by looking at you?
Yeah, he's not one to be tangled with. Roper, obviously, being Roper, spots Tanya,
who
is a very pretty lady.
Lovely
he's
lady.
Got his eye on her straight away.
Yeah, he's a bit of a charmer, isn't he, old Roper there? Yeah, I've already made my choice.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that scene. That scene could only been done in 1973.
Yeah, 1960.
We get a great little moment now where we're shown around the island briefly, and there's hundreds and hundreds of martial arts practitioners, and they're all in unison, oi, 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 and they're sort of walking around the island, and the guys are looking around thinking, "Wow, well, this is pretty massive. Actually, this tournament's pretty huge. It's kind of like Mortal Kombat or something, isn't it?"
Yeah, actually, I was going to say that. You talk about the Mortal Kombat film from the 90s that we had. Was that the one?
Yeah.
I think if you can have a movie like this, you could have a load of guys in unison, aren't you? You always have a scene like that. I think you had that in The Karate Kid, didn't you? You always have that,
Oi, 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 oi. Everybody just doing it together.
Yeah, Dan, I can do karate, yeah. Oi, 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 oi. I'll be out in my garden later.
We're both black belts.
I'll be stood in the garden later doing that. Oi, oi, oi. Oh dear. So yeah,
we get this banquet scene now, don't we?
Oh man, it's a great banquet scene, isn't it?
There's sumo wrestlers, there's birds in cages, performers, jugglers, there's food and drink and women, and all the martial artists are basically being shown a good time before the martial arts tournament starts the next day. There's a great line where Roper walks over to Williams and he says, "Why aren't you eating anything?" He says, "Oh, I don't think I can keep anything down." And Roper says, "I got a feeling we're being fattened up for the kill." Yeah. And that's a great little line.
That is just, when I watched this, I thought that's one line that sums all of this up, doesn't it? That one line, and he's right, isn't he, really? Yeah, being fed for the kill. But there's a bit in this I like, Dan. I know you're going to get to this in a minute. I think it's just coming up now. It's when Hun comes in, doesn't he? And
he does, yeah. He comes to welcome everybody.
I just like the way the two sumo wrestlers in the middle, they just stop, don't they? They're just like...
Yeah. Everybody just freezes still.
Yeah, and then I'll let you carry on with it. Let it roll, man. So Hun turns up.
Yeah, so they do. That's the command that he's got though over this island. Is as soon as he walks in the room, they all just freeze while he does his little speech. Welcome to the island. You're all going to kick each other's asses over the next few days. I hope you enjoy yourselves. Let me know if there's anything you need. And then he picks up a couple of apples, doesn't he? And he throws them up in the air, and his female bodyguards throw little darts at them. And one of them is Mei Ling, who is the female operative that Bruce Lee wants to meet up with to get the information. He keeps hold of the dart, and that will come back into play a bit later on.
And then all of a sudden, old Han says, enjoy yourself, doesn't he? And then he walks out, and then all of a sudden, everybody's just sort of still just goes back into it again, don't they? Ding, 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 ding.
It's like someone's pressed play again.
Yeah, that's it.
And then he just carries on.
I watched that the other night. I thought, It's bloody hilarious.
Talking of hilarious, the next scene is where our heroes, they've been given food and drink, and now they're being given women.
Yeah.
So Tanya, who turns out is like the head of the brothel, I guess, on the island, she walks into William's room while he's listening to some funky music on his headphones.
Well,
and he sort of looks up and says, "There's like 10 women in the room, isn't there?"
That's it. I was going to say, Dan he's wearing my podcasting headphones there. I've got the same ones as me. Yeah, all these women turn up, don't they? That's it, yeah. Take your pick.
Says, "Oh, for me? Really, you shouldn't have. But if you insist, I'll take you, and you."
Yeah, go steady, dude. You know, pace yourself here, man. Do you know what I mean?
He says, "Please understand if I've left anybody out. It's been a busy day and I'm quite tired."
Oh, man. That's so 70s right there, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Oh,
Jesus Christ. Bruce Lee, they come into Bruce Lee's room and he's not interested at all. He says, "There is one girl that was at the feast tonight that I would like to have to come to my room, and that's the owner of this dart." And she says, "Oh yeah, I'll send her up to you." So later on, she'll be coming up to meet Bruce Lee, and that's obviously Mei Lee.
Yeah.
And then Roper, you mentioned Roper earlier. He's already made his choice, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's it. Again, he just gets the right line there, doesn't he? That is a Roper line, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? They just get it all right. I've already made my choice. That's it. And she's like,
She's like, excellent.
Yeah.
All right then. She's happy with that.
Yeah, she just goes, yeah, no, it's fine, not a problem at all. Yeah, there's no hesitation there at all, is there? So
I know, but oh well, that's John Saxon for you. He could charm the pants off of whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Sexy.
Mei Ling comes up and meets up with Lee. So we get this brief scene where she says, "I think I'm going to be killed soon," because what they seem to be doing is testing the strength of drugs on some of the prostitutes here, and they're ODing, and then they ship some of the girls out once they're under the influence. It's a bit like what's going on in Taken, which you covered in your last episode, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's
right. That's right. Very much
drugs
so,
and sex ring.
Yeah.
So he's, all right, that's fine. I'm going to sort out something while I'm here. This film probably only takes place over about 3 days, really, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah. It's not over a long period, is it? They only go through, like say, 2 nights or 3 nights at the stretch, don't they?
Yeah. Well, the next morning is the first morning of the tournament. And again, Bruce Lee showing his attitude. He refuses to wear the uniform that the rest of them are wearing, which gets him into a little bit of trouble. But that guy says to him, "Why aren't you wearing the uniform?" And he just looks at him back. It doesn't say a word. He just stares back at him. And the guy just walks off like...
Because I'm Bruce Lee and I'm a badass, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I wear what I want.
Was there, at the night time, just before the daytime, is that when William sees him running across the top of the reef? Or is
No, that's the coming night now.
Right.
So that's
okay,
the
I'm
next
just getting
night
ahead of myself
that
here, mate. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
it's all good. It's good. It's all good. Like I say, it all takes place. It feels like it all happens over a week, but it only takes place over 2 or 3 nights. So yeah, we get our first fight of the tournament here, which is Williams gets to fight the guy from the boat, Parsons, the bully that Bruce Lee put out on the boat.
That's right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and he's got some pretty good
and
moves.
Obviously, he's got some brilliant moves, and he's got some brilliant sounds. Do you remember the sounds that Williams makes when he fights?
I can't remember actually. I should. There's been so much going on in this film. What sound does he make?
He does. So Bruce Lee's obviously got his like wah, but Williams does this like oi, 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 and he just destroys this guy in minutes.
Yeah.
Roper's obviously making money on the side betting, so that's the way Roper does it.
Yeah. Is this when Roper comes on?
Gets,
now, or?
Yeah, that's right. Roper gets to have a little fight now as well. He always loses though because he's a bit too cocky, isn't he?
Is that where he's doing the betting ring with Williams now, where he's kind of like doing the fingers and all that sort of stuff, where he's getting his ass kicked and then
I still don't know if Roper was getting his ass kicked or if they were being a bit of a what do you call it, hustling the guy, because when Roper eventually he's been knocked down for about the third time. He then stands back up and takes the guy out in like 2 kicks. So I don't know if they were hustling the guy.
Yeah, because
Maybe they were.
Apparently, bit of trivia here is John Saxon actually said that all these shots took about 8 days to film, and he said that he was
really?
actually constantly fighting for eight days. And he said by the end of it, he just got up and said, "I'm never going to be in a karate movie again because I'm going to be dead." You know what I mean? So apparently he got his arse whipped in this, yeah. But
Yeah, well, I mean, he's good though, isn't he, John Saxon? You know, we mentioned he's got a black belt, and he pulls off a few good moves.
he's familiar with it, yeah, that's right, yeah, that's it. But not quite as good as
He's
our
no
main
Bruce Lee.
character. He's no Bruce Lee, no. But,
Well, this is the first night now, RJ, that you wanted to talk about, where Bruce goes out on his first little excursion, doesn't he?
yeah, it's one of my favourite lines from the movie from Williams, where he sees him run across the top of the building. He goes, "He's like a human fly."
A human fly.
It's like a human fly. But yeah,
Bruce has got this like ninja outfit on, and he's sneaking around. The guards are incredibly stupid. They don't spot him at one point, and they're pretty much he stood right behind them at one point. And he's got his rope, and he finds a secret passage that leads down to an underground factory.
this is where
So
it
he
all
knows
becomes
that
very
there's definitely
James.
something.
Comes very James Bond here, doesn't it? With all this.
Really does. All the underground lair, you know, my secret underground lair.
Oh. $1 million.
But he's interrupted. He's interrupted, isn't he? He doesn't go down into the lab because guards come along and he fights a few guards, and that's that really. And then in the morning, Bolo gets to flex his muscles. Do you remember what happens with Bolo in the morning?
Is this? He doesn't.
This is where the guards are publicly killed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's
by
it.
Bolo.
Because Han says, you know, you're useless, and they are, aren't they? Really, they're pretty bad guards, aren't they? For all the people that he could have the pick of the bunch with, he picks those guards, and they're pretty useless. Either whether they've had any training at all, isn't it? Really, but yeah, they get whipped, don't they, by Bolo?
He kills them all, like 3 or 4 of them, in front of everybody there, to demonstrate, you know, he won't tolerate this level of incompetence. And it's pretty shocking. He breaks necks, snaps necks, you know, arms, and Bolo is just flexing those big old guns of his, isn't he?
Yeah, because I never actually, again, it's rewatching this film, I didn't realise that he actually killed them. Do you know what I mean? Watching this again. It's funny how you watch a film with critical eye, isn't it, when you're doing a podcast? Do you know what I mean? You can overlook stuff, and then when I was really watching it, I thought, actually, he's killing these guys, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He's proper sorting them out.
And I think when you're a kid, you don't really... That doesn't really sink in. You just see like martial arts happening on screen, and it's a bit cartoony.
Yeah.
And you just think, oh well, that's that.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's exactly it. But I suppose at the same time, it makes the bad guys even badder, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? You think that's what these guys are capable of. They can kill you. Han has no problem in killing you, does he? That's what. But then it makes our heroes. It makes you get behind the heroes even more, doesn't it? If you know what I mean. You think, yeah, you want to root for them now, don't you? And you
Totally, man. Totally. And talking of rooting for our heroes,
yeah.
Bruce Lee is up for his first fight of the tournament.
Oh, this is incredible. This scene. It's one of my favourite scenes. This is.
He gets to fight O'Hara,
Yeah.
and that's kind of his. This is his chance to get revenge for his sister. We get the brilliant scene where O'Hara punches that piece of wood, don't we?
Yeah. Great scene here.
And what does Bruce says back to him? Boards don't hit back.
Oh, it's iconic. It's just an iconic line, isn't it? Oh man.
You imagine saying that to somebody. Boards don't hit back.
It just comes out of the right line at the right time, doesn't he? Because in some ways that knocks O'Hara off, doesn't it? It's fighting with your wit, isn't it, to throw your opponent off. So he kind of just chucks that one in. It's almost like his first punch, isn't it, with his opponent?
It really is. It really is.
Right.
And then, talking of first punches, the first 2 or 3 punches Bruce does are his famous 1-inch punch. They stand very close together, and as soon as they say go, Bruce's fist moves just an inch and knocks O'Hara down, and he manages to do that 2 or 3 times.
Because his punching is so fast, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
It's ridiculous.
Even on like a Blu-ray, to try and slow that down and pause it, you just can't. You can't even capture that, can you? It's just amazing. I mean, to watch that back in 1973 at the cinema for the first time. Must have been blown away by it with that martial arts.
I was always a big fan of the move he does where O'Hara grabs his foot and Bruce Lee does like a backflip and kicks him in the face and then lands.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And then he does that huge power side kick, which throws him about 20 feet back into the crowd, doesn't he?
Yeah. But it's, going back to the beginning when you saw O'Hara on the, was it on the footage, wasn't it? So he's getting hit by boards and stuff like that. So you realise how hard he is for then Bruce Lee to come up and then just kick him like that and then just push him over, don't you? You think, bloody hell, the power behind that kick.
He grabs a couple of bottles.
Yeah, basically he strips this guy down, O'Hara, from being a specially trained martial artist, proper hard man, and he's almost become like a pub thug, isn't he? To thinking,
yep,
what else can I do except do what the pub thug does? Just picks up a glass. I'm gonna have to kill him with a bottle, which is it's what he's left with, isn't it? Really.
And that's a red rag to a bull because Bruce kicks the bottles out of his hands, knocks him down, and then there's that infamous jump in slow motion up into the air. And you don't know where he's landing. I'm guessing on his chest or something, but he lands on him. You don't see it. And it's all very slow. And he's killed him.
Yeah,
he's killed O'Hara.
Yeah, he's got that sort of war face on him, I guess you could say. It's just, wow, like that. And I'd say this, would you say this is like the sort of pinnacle part of the movie? It's like a real sort of, it's got you to a sort of tip of the mountain here, isn't it, in terms of where they're going.
He's in too far. He's in too far now. He's killed someone. He's got the revenge for his sister, but it wasn't what he wanted it to be. And he's on this mission, and he can only continue now. He can't turn back now.
Yeah. Yes. Even talking about it, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's like, whoa, it's just amazing. He's basically told Han that I'm here. I'm something special. I'm the boss of your island now. Do you know what I mean? Even Han's probably looking at that thinking, who the hell's this guy? Do you know?
I wonder if he recognises him from the Shaolin Temple, or maybe they weren't in the same sort of class or whatever together. I don't know, but he might maybe even recognises his fighting style. I'm not sure. Possibly,
but maybe he's putting on the poker face. Perhaps maybe he doesn't want to show out just yet. Perhaps I don't know.
Yeah,
he might do.
Well, Williams gets summoned to Han's study because Han has been told by some of his prostitutes that Williams went outside to do some yoga and stuff after having sex with about 26 women. And he says, I know you were outside. What were you looking for? And he said, look, I was outside, but I wasn't the only one. And he's like, well, you need to tell me who it was, and you need to tell me now. And he says, look, I want to leave this island. I don't want to be here anymore. You can't treat people like this. And he says, it's not possible to leave my island. And we get that famous, bullshit, Mr. Han, man.
That's it.
So good. And he gets a bunch of guards to come in, and Williams turns around and says, man, you come right out of a comic book.
I love that line. I think that's great. I've used that line a few times. That line. I love it.
He takes out all these guards easily, but when it comes to fighting Han, RJ, it's not as easy, is it?
No, he's the end boss on an 8-bit video game, isn't he? He's got a bigger power bar, hasn't he, than Williams, unfortunately.
And that is because he's got a metal hand.
Yeah, which he didn't know about, did he? That's it. He takes him on, doesn't he? Smacks him around the head with that metal hand, doesn't he?
Yeah, he basically demolishes him with this metal hand.
Yeah.
And, it's a pretty weird scene, actually, because you've got loads of prostitutes high on heroin lying around laughing while these two men are kicking crap out of each other. It's a pretty strange scene.
Yeah, it's very, I suppose you could almost say, very Grindhouse, isn't it, this bit? Do you know what I mean? It's got some really dark elements to it, isn't it? And like you say, with the sort of metal hand and all that. And
apparently they hired real prostitutes as well, because they couldn't find enough actresses, so they just hired a couple of prostitutes and put them in this scene.
I was going to say that earlier. Yeah, I did know. I'd heard about that. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? They couldn't get any girls, so they just, like I say, they hired real prostitutes from Hong Kong. So,
Christ.
I guess that's filmmaking in the 70s for you, I guess.
I guess.
The good old days.
Oh God, yeah.
I'm sure your co-host Gav would love to go back to the 70s, be a film director. Oh, we'll just go get some prostitutes. That's all right. Yeah, that's okay.
Well, Roper is also invited to a meeting with Han now, and he's given an offer. He's basically shown around the underground lair and basically shown that they're making opium and heroin, and they've got prostitutes. Yeah. And he sees all of these different hand weapons that Han has in glass cases, and he says to him, it's a business, we make money, we have a product, we distribute it. And you can see Roper's shitting himself. He's squirming a little bit. He's thinking, this is bigger than I expected it. So he's kind of kissing up to Han a little bit. Yeah. But then Han plays his trump card, doesn't he? And he shows him William's body.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you weren't getting worried when you saw these throne room with all those hands, at this point you'd be getting concerned now, wouldn't you know what I mean? You'd be thinking, oh man, what have I got myself into? So yeah, that's right. He wants him to join. He wants this to be a bridge into America, doesn't he? He wants to bridge this network over. And then that's when Roper comes out and says, "You want me to be a part of this?" Doesn't he? He tells him straight, doesn't he? He says, "No, don't want any."
He says, "I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it." Yeah. They've killed one of his best mates. Yeah. They drop him into. I think they drop him into a pit of acid, don't they? This body as well, because they drop him into this spiked pit with bubbling water in it, which I'm assuming is acid.
God.
It's so James Bond.
I was going to say, was Golden Globus on set for a minute with that? Do you know what I mean? It's like, just get a pit with some acid and you got some spikes coming out the side of it, haven't you? It's just crazy. It's crazy.
They almost guillotine a cat as well, don't they, at one point?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. It's, it gets pretty crazy, this part of the movie, doesn't it? It's, a test.
Well, Han's revealing everything now, really, and it didn't work. Like you said, Roper doesn't want anything to do with it.
No, and
so
he still doesn't, does he?
Not going to play well.
He doesn't. He's just said to him, "No, I don't want anything to do with it now," does he? That's it.
Yeah, so we'll catch up with Roper in the morning because we've got one more nighttime excursion where Bruce breaks back into the underground lair, but this time they're onto him, so they put a cobra on the top of the trapdoor, haven't they?
That's right. That's it. That's where you get that scene that you mentioned earlier, wasn't it, with the cobra, isn't he? Puts him into like a sock.
Yeah, he slaps it, put it in a bag thing. He breaks into the underground factory, and this is the start of where the film just really takes off for me now.
Yeah, from here onwards, that's it. You've got the momentum now, haven't you? This is where he starts fighting all the guards, doesn't he? I mean, they just come out on the ton, don't they, now?
He manages to radio in to Braithwaite, but this sets off an alarm, which means every guard goes for him.
Sorry, Dan, I was going to say, this is where Braithwaite, then he's in bed, and he goes, "Good heavens, this call came in half an hour ago."
That's right. Why wasn't I alerted earlier? And then he calls the Prime Minister or somebody who says, the person he rings says, "Oh, he's in bed." And he says, "Well, I don't give a damn if he's in bed. You get him out now." And he says, "Oh," then the person on the other line says something else. And he says, "I don't damn well care who he's with in bed. This is important."
Yeah, I was watching that the other night and I thought, that's just great. I love the way they just throw that bit in just for Bruce Lee's going to, sort of do some ass kicking, so fantastic.
A little bit of comedy and then Bruce Lee's ass kicking.
Oh dear! And then,
boy, oh boy, there is some ass kicking coming up now. He takes on 51 opponents apparently in the cave scene. Is that what it was? Coming up now.
Yeah, just goes for it, doesn't he? And
he is incredible.
Doesn't Jackie Chan turn up 3 times in this, though, doesn't he? As one of the thugs, he sort of plays different characters or something like that.
Yeah, he definitely plays the one who gets his neck broken, who gets his face on screen, but he also gets hit in the head with a stick, and I think he's in another background shot later. And Bruce just goes through these guards first of all with just hands and feet, then he gets one of the long bow staffs, then he drops that and picks up a couple of sticks, and then we get the famous nunchuck scene.
Yeah, that's it.
This was banned, wasn't it, in the UK and many countries for a long time, this scene.
Was it really? Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. because nunchucks were banned, that's why the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles became Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in the UK. They cut out anything to do with Michelangelo's nunchucks. There was a whole controversy around it in the UK. It's crazy, really. But yeah, if you can watch this full version of Enter the Dragon with this nunchuck scene, you're in for a treat, because this guard has a pair of nunchucks that he doesn't really know how to use, and he tries to hit Bruce Lee with them, but he grabs them, and then he does this 10 seconds like where they're just spinning all around the place, aren't they? And the guy like thinks, shit, I'm in trouble here, and Bruce just takes out about 20 blokes with these nunchucks.
It's just
brilliant,
amazing, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. And like you say, you just know he's doing all those moves as well, don't you? Do you know what I mean? It's just amazing.
So fast. But he's captured. He's locked in a room with sliding doors, and he's caught. And in the morning, we find out that he is joined Roper as a prisoner. They've both got their hands tied behind their back. And shit's about to hit the fan.
Don't they sort of like join forces now, don't they? They know that they've got to get their way out of this now, don't they?
Yeah, because Han wants Roper to fight and kill Bruce Lee, and Roper says, "Look, I'm not going to do it. I told you last night. I'm not going to do any of this." So he says to Roper, "That's fine. I'll find somebody else for you to fight." And he says, "Bolo!" And Bolo steps up to fight Roper.
Yeah,
and
it's funny, isn't it? When I watched it, I didn't realise. I've always thought that Bruce Lee killed Bolo. But they
it's funny. I always remember like that as well. But you watch it and you think, it's actually John Saxon that kicks his ass.
Yeah, they sort of let him use his black belt here, didn't they? Which he had on his CV. Yeah, go and take him on. But he and
he's a bigger bloke as well, so he's got the muscle to fight Bolo. So they have a bit of a fight. He ends up killing him. He sort of chops him in the throat and kills him. We get this massive brawl kick off now, where Han sends all of his people to get Roper and Lee, but the prisoners there's a load of prisoners underground, they've all been released, so they join in. And this bit reminds me a little bit of Big Trouble in Little China now, where you've got all the guys in black and all the guys in white, and it's just a mass free-for-all, isn't it?
Well, you're expecting Jack Byrne to turn up in his truck now with light coming out of his eyes.
It's all in the reflexes, Wang. It's all in the reflexes.
You'd probably find that John Carpenter probably recited this a little bit through this movie with Big Trouble, I'd imagine. So, yeah, there's probably. I
should imagine so, because he definitely took some influence, didn't he? And there we go. You've got your classic John Carpenter segue, RJ, which I know you always manage to squeeze into almost every episode.
Honestly, Dan, I don't make it. You could listen to my show and think I do it on purpose, but I always manage to segue into John Carpenter somehow. I even did it with Taken, for crying out loud. I've never even thought I'd get JC in there. So.
I thought he's done it again.
Oh, God. I'll see if there's one film I'll try and not do it with. We'll see. There you go. But there you go. John Carpenter, there you go.
So anyway, we get this massive brawl. We get people fighting people all over the place. And it pairs down to Bruce Lee has a bit of a fight with Han. And Han runs back into his palace, so Bruce chases him. And he puts on his sort of Freddy Krueger Wolverine hand, doesn't he, with the great big claws on it.
Probably one of my favourite hands there for Han. I quite like that one. I thought it was pretty cool.
I quite liked the hairy bear one that he had. It was like a big hairy one with like a bear claw. I quite like that one as well.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty iconic. Love to have that as a prop, wouldn't you? If you could get hold of that, the sort of.
I mean, if I ever lost a hand, RJ, I'd probably have that as my actual hand.
Yeah, but you remember, Dan, as soon as you lose your hand, you become a bad guy.
That's true, actually. I'll have to have my own island.
That's it, yeah. Oh, so Dan, I heard you lost your hand the other day. Yeah, but I've become bad. And now I live on an island. All these things have happened.
I'm selling heroin and prostitutes.
I'll just go, oh, that was bad, wasn't
it? Yeah, I took it really badly. But I'm rich now. That's the main thing.
Yeah, there you go.
Bruce Lee walks into this room and he just says one line. And that line is, "You have offended my family and you have offended a Shaolin temple." Oh. And that is all he needs to say.
Yeah. Right. Then,
and they fight.
And what a fight this is, man. What an epic! You know, if you didn't think this film was good leading up to this, with all the other stuff, then you get this bit here, don't you? Do you know what I mean? It's just amazing.
Yeah, we get like a little taster of a fight outside the mirrored hall, the mirrored maze, and then Han throws a spear which Bruce dodges, and it goes through the door, and then he disappears into this hall of mirrors. Really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the iconic scene, isn't it? It's just apparently they used 800. Was it 800 mirrors or something like that? Might have been a bit more than that for this scene.
What's clever is you don't see any cameras or anything reflected. Like it must have taken them a lot of work to do this.
You know what? I never thought about
no
that.
Reflections of any crew or anything.
I never thought about that until you just said that. Then that's quite a good point, actually.
Yeah. And Bruce has got his iconic scratches on his chest and his cheeks, almost like a Red Indian war paint, like a Native American war paint, isn't it? He's been cut all over the place, and he looks badass in the scene, really.
I think you've got to have that, haven't you, on the hero, haven't you? You've got to have these scratches, haven't you? I think that just makes it.
Yeah. And they have a little bit of a fight, but it's not much of a fight. It's a bit of an anticlimax almost, because Bruce does a couple of moves, kicks Han, and he goes flying back and lands on that spear from earlier, and that's kind of how Han dies, really, just on the spear.
Yeah, and then he starts spinning around, doesn't he, on that?
That's good effects, isn't it? Because he's kind of got the spear going through him, but it's spinning around in a rotating mirror. It looks really good.
Yeah. And then that's when you get Bruce Lee comes up to the temple, doesn't he? And he does that sign, doesn't he, to Roper? He gives him the
little thumbs up.
Little thumbs up. And then you see...
It would have been great if he'd have done the little finger thing from Big Trouble in Little China. That would have been better if they'd have done that.
Well, the old Wing Chun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
There we go.
But you know what, Dan? I was going to say this. I absolutely love that scene right there. You know, when it comes to getting camera shots, just when Bruce Lee comes up, you know, he's got the claw marks all over him, and he just does that sign to Roper. For me, I don't know what it is about that scene. I just love it. Even when I was a kid, I just thought that's Bruce Lee saying, "That's it, mission accomplished." Do you know what I mean? Done.
Yeah, all the battle's done, all the goodies have won. Yeah. You know, all the guys in black are lying on the ground dead, all the guys in white are just sort of waiting for the army to arrive. And they do. They arrive very late, as always, don't they? Because the helicopters just come in just as the credits roll. And they're always too late, these people in these films.
Well, I've always said this, the cavalry always turn up at the end, don't they? Which
you know, you can imagine them all landing and Bruce Lee going, "Look, don't worry about it. I took care of it all. Don't worry about it, guys. You're too late."
Yeah, you could just imagine the head of British intelligence being in one of those helicopters going, "Oh my God, there he is. There's Lee. He's still alive."
Thank God. Let's get him a cup of tea immediately, quickly.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, let's get you a cup of tea. Got some biscuits as well. There you go. Good job done, son. Oh, brilliant. And that's it.
The movie flies by because it doesn't feel like it's an hour and 45 minutes. It flies by. It feels like it's half an hour, doesn't it?
It does, and I think that's what works for the film. As a sort of roundup of this film, I think it does everything it wants it to do. It's not complicated. It's an easy film to watch with a very simple plot, I guess you can say, with some great characters. And I could quite easily, it doesn't happen all the time, but I could quite easily go back to the beginning and watch it again. It's one of those films.
I probably end up watching it a couple of times a year, I'd say. I've seen this movie so many times.
Yeah, quite easy. But again, when it's simple, it goes quite quick, but it is one of those films that you re-watch and you'll see something else. Do you know what I mean? It's like whether it's in the banquet room, you might see other characters, just things like that. It's one of those films there's so much going on, it goes so quick, you kind of miss stuff. And the other thing I found out
that Linda Lee's, Bruce Lee's wife, was in that banquet scene. I only found that out in this watch, actually.
Yeah, that's right. I was just about to say that she's got like a purple dress on or something, isn't she? Just walking along.
You see her for a brief second, but she's walking around in a purple dress.
Good little cameo there. So yeah, there you go, guys. That is Enter the Dragon. I guess if you have seen it, I hope you're a fan like me and Dan. If you just happen to not see this film, go check it out. I'm sure you won't be disappointed, because I don't know anybody that doesn't like this film.
I'll go on record as saying it's, in my opinion, the greatest martial arts movie of all time.
Well, I'm with you on that.
That's my opinion.
I think it's a blueprint, isn't it, really? A lot of films are influenced by it, aren't they? Especially, I would say, Bloodsport with Van Damme. That's almost like a sort of like a homage to this, isn't it? But yeah, it's
all
it's
of
just
our,
incredible.
a movie where all the heroes go to a place and there's a tournament and martial arts and different characters popping up. Even the Mortal Kombat movie, they probably took elements. Even when they made the video game of Mortal Kombat, they probably took elements from this to make that.
Yeah, it's funny you said, because we mentioned Mortal Kombat earlier, and I saw the trailer for that, and I thought that is Enter the Dragon, isn't it? Really, because they go to an island, don't they, for a tournament. It's a bit more sort of 90s, isn't it? Obviously with the video game market and all that.
And that Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, The Quest, where he goes to the island with Roger Moore. Do you remember that?
Oh, God almighty. I don't think I've seen that, but what a crazy movie. Wow.
It's a martial arts tournament on an island, and Roger Moore's in it for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird.
Honestly,
really,
Dan,
really
I'd love to be in a conference room when they put these films together. Some guy there with a cigar saying, "Let's get Van Damme. Yeah, who else should we get? Let's get Roger Moore."
Well, James Bond, yeah, get him in there. All right, I'll ring him up.
Let's put him on an island. What else should we do? Yeah, let's get a shark in this as well as a tornado. Sounds great. There's 25.
I'd be all over that movie.
There's 25 million. Go and do it, please. Get it out there.
Well, I've seen a zombie fight a shark, so I'd love to see Bruce Lee fight a shark, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. I suppose that'd be the next movie, wouldn't it? Ninja Shark.
Oh, there we go, RJ. You've just written the next movie. Let's copyright that right now. Ninja Sharks.
Ninja Shark Nado.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Sharks.
What? There you go, mate. Let's do it. Let's get it out there.
Directed by John Carpenter, of course.
Coming straight to DVD on a supermarket near you. Oh man. So let's wrap it up on that, Dan, I'd say. Let's end it on a shark note. We've managed to get to some sort of shark movie with Enter the Dragon. So I'm going to do a little bit of admin now, guys. Going to close the show. But before I go, Dan, do you want us to tell us a little bit about your show, mate, with Podcast on Haunted Hill? I know you've just done 28 Days Later.
So we just covered 28 days and 28 weeks later for episode 90, and as RJ says, I'm one of the co-hosts of the podcast on Haunted Hill. You can find us through Legion Networks, same place you'll find this awesome podcast that you're listening to right now, and we're on Facebook as well. So if you like horror movies or cult movies, come and listen to me and my buddy Gav chat absolute nonsense. We usually cover 2 movies per episode, but they're a bit go on a bit long sometimes, don't they, RJ? Unfortunately, but that is what it is. It's just us chatting shit.
Well, Dan, I love it, mate. Like I say, I've been listening to your show for 4 years now, and I actually like it with your show because, believe it or not, mate, I've listened to your show in some very international places, shall we say, when I go on holiday. So,
nice.
I know you say your show goes on, but when I'm on the plane, you get like a 3 or 4 hour show, and I think it's just right. Do you know what I mean? So it works just fine.
Perfect.
So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, mate. And I just love your banter, mate. It's great. It's brilliant. So,
thanks.
So yeah,
thank you for having me on again,
Dan. Not my pleasure, mate. And I love having you on the show. And hopefully you'll be returning soon because we was talking about the Police Story, another martial arts film.
Yeah,
so,
Jackie Chan.
So I'd love to have you back on board for that, mate. And I can see this sort of being a regular thing with you coming on to have a chat about films and stuff. So it's all good stuff, mate. But yeah, there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. As a bit of admin for myself, you can find the show on iTunes and YouTube. I'm a proud member of the Legion Podcast Network, so go and check out all the other shows there. I'll play a promo at the end of this. And I've also got a Facebook page, so put stuff on there. Let me know if there's any films you want me to cover. I can take a look at those. And I'll be back soon. I've got another guest coming onto the show, someone you're familiar with here, Dan, is Mark Lockhart.
Yeah.
We've been wanting to do Beverly Hills Cop for a long time, so we're going to be covering that one soon. So that'll be dropping soon as well.
That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, good old Mark. He's always good to chat to.
Yeah.
And I've got The Beach that's coming up soon as well, so that's going to be dropping soon. And I'm also going to be doing James Bond. Kind of difficult to try and pick a James Bond film because there's so many, but I've picked The Man with the Golden Gun. So it's one of my favourites.
Is similar to Enter the Dragon in some ways, isn't it? It's a guy on an island, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't know about you, Dan. I was always a fan of Roger Moore because I think he was kind of the Bond that was kicking around when we was probably about 10 years old and always seemed to be on.
He's
TV
my
at
favourite
Christmas.
Bond.
Yeah, I think he's a tough guy, but he's not ripped, is he? But he's got a lot of charm, gets the job done, good with the ladies. Loads of one-liners, you know, just keeping the British end up, sir. And The Man with the Golden Gun for me, I think it was one of my favourites when I was growing up. It's got obviously Christopher Lee in it, so it's a bit like James Bond versus Dracula, and it's some good stuff. So
Roger Moore was in all the best Bond movies, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did really, didn't he? He had a good take on it, didn't he? Because you think he went to space, living.
There we go. He went to space with the Leprechaun.
That's right. That's it. Yeah, there's Leprechaun. We mentioned that again in the show. Yeah, he did. He had a good time. So there we go. We shall leave. We've gone from Bruce Lee to Roger Moore. So there you go. Roger Moore's been brought up a few times on this episode. So there you go.
It's the natural evolution of conversation.
There you go. That's it. And if we keep talking, we'll probably end up talking about Nicolas Cage if we carry on. So we shall close the show there. So
all right, cool, nice.
All right, Dan. Cheers again for coming on the show, mate.
Anytime.
Cheers, buddy. Keep it bite-sized. Keep it safe.
If you enjoyed this show, then make sure you check out the other great shows on the Legion Podcast Network, like Cinema Psyops, Cinema Beef, Devour the Podcast, Duncan and Bo Come Correct, Exploding Heads Horror Movie Podcast, Friday the 13th, Get Slayed, The Helming Power Hour, Hello, This is the Doom Show, Hero Hero Go Show, Kill the Cast, Underwater Kaiju from Outer Space, Jerry Hates Action, Legion After Dark, Mental Health, Obsessive Cinema, Discourse, Pick 6 Movies, the podcast by The Cemetery, the podcast on Haunted Hill, the Psychosemantic Podcast, Rick Radio, House of Wax, Dude Looks Like the 80s, Rabbit and Red Radio, the Shadecast, Short Bus Cinema, 2 Drink Minimum Commentaries, the VD Clinic, Who Will Survive Horror Podcast, and Witch vs. the Doomsday Clock. With such a wide spread of shows, there is guaranteed to be a niche for you to fall in love with. Horror, politics, movies, books, sex, music, commentaries, health, video games, kaiju, action, news, comedy, and opinions that would most likely get you killed in some parts of the world. We are proud to bring you some of the best podcasting in the world. Check us out at www.legionpodcast.com, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and any other dark corner of the internet where podcasts can be found.